The early morning breeze on Kondao was colder than usual. The ground was still damp with dew, the sky a hazy gray, and almond leaves lay scattered along the stone path leading to the execution ground. The sound of soldiers' boots struck the earth in a steady, dry rhythm, shattering the silence of dawn. Between two rows of escorting soldiers, a young girl walked slowly. The faded prison uniform draped over her slender frame, yet it couldn't hide her unusually steady stride. Her face still shone under the pale morning light, the face of a girl just 17 years old. Thi Sau, a simple name like the red soil of her homeland, yet it makes hearts still with awe whenever it is spoken. Not a single tear, not a word of pleading. She walked on, step by step, as if heading toward the sun, not toward death. That day, the people of Kondao, from behind the trees, stole glances. Some trembled with admiration. Others dared not breathe for fear of disturbing the moment. They were witnessing a scene history would never forget. A Vietnamese girl, fearless before the firing squad, her head held high, her gaze fixed on the sky and the free land. That was not an end. It was the beginning of an immortal legend. Background and childhood. Thi Sau was born in 1933 into a poor working-class family in Phuc Thọ Village, Phuc Long Thọ Commune, Dut Dau District, Bà Rịa Vũng Tàu Province, then part of Bà Rịa, southern Vietnam. That small coastal village in the early days of the Resistance War was constantly haunted by the sound of gunfire, the smell of gunpowder, and the presence of French colonial troops everywhere. In the midst of that turmoil, a baby girl was born. No one could have imagined that she would later become the youngest female hero in Vietnam's resistance history against the French. Her family, though not well off, lived by farming and small trading, and was known in the village for their patriotism and integrity. From a young age, Sau was raised in a revolutionary atmosphere and the resilient spirit of the Southern people. In the memories of those who knew her, Thi Sau was a lively, quick-witted girl with bright eyes and a pure smile, always willing to help those around her. Unlike other children who only knew how to play, Sau grew up amidst gunfire and foreign invaders, so her awareness of her homeland and hatred of the enemy came very early. At just 9 or 10 years old, she would often accompany her mother to the market. Listening to adults discuss the revolution and witnessing the French soldiers arrest and torture civilians and revolutionaries. Those images etched themselves into her young mind, gradually nurturing a fierce spirit of resistance in her small heart. In the eyes of many, Sau was an unusually brave, independent, and determined girl. Despite her young age, she already helped her parents carry water, cook meals, shop at the market, and even secretly deliver food or hide letters for people she knew were revolutionaries, never asking questions or speaking a word to anyone. She learned to keep secrets, to observe, to listen, and to assist the resistance in her own way. No one taught her this. It was a natural growth from a soul deeply rooted in the painful soil of her homeland. The people of Dut Dau often recalled, little Sau was so quick. She was small, but fast as a squirrel and had an excellent memory. You could count on her to deliver messages safely. Because of that, just a few years later at the age of 12, Thi Sau was entrusted by the revolutionary organization to serve as a liaison for the local guerrilla unit. It was an extremely dangerous job. If caught, a young girl like Sau could be brutally tortured or even executed in secret. Yet she never hesitated. On the contrary, she considered it an honor and was ready to risk her life for her homeland. Thi Sau's childhood had no dolls, no games, no proper schooling like other children. Instead, it was filled with stealthy afternoons, sneaking past enemy posts, sprinting along forest paths to deliver letters, hurried meals in guerrilla shelters, and wary eyes watching every unfamiliar figure. In that childhood, her greatest joy wasn't receiving gifts. It was seeing the approving nod of a guerrilla fighter, a silent thank you for completing her mission. It can be said that Thi Sau's childhood was one forced to mature early, but from those years, an unyielding spirit, a steely will, and a brave heart were formed. They not only prepared her for the glorious feats to come, but also engraved her name into history as a vivid and moving symbol of the Vietnamese girl in the resistance, joining the revolution and her first act of heroism. In 1945, after the success of the August Revolution, a spirit of resistance surged across the country. But in Bà Rịa Dut Dau, peace did not last long. The French colonialists quickly returned to reoccupy the South, deploying troops to strategic regions, including the very land where Thi Sau was born and raised. At that time, Sau was only 12 years old. Unwilling to watch her homeland suffer under foreign occupation, Thi Sau decided to join the local guerrilla forces. She began with liaison work, delivering messages, relaying information, keeping watch, and tracking enemy movements. With her petite, agile figure and natural intelligence, she could easily blend into the crowd, slip past enemy lines, and move through alleys and forest trails to complete her missions quietly but effectively. To her older comrades, Sau was a strange little girl, so brave it astonished even the adults. Not everyone dared to sneak into enemy camps just to gather information, let alone carry a grenade in their clothing, waiting patiently for the right moment to strike. But Thi Sau did, and she did it with resolute determination. Her first act of heroism came in 1949, when she was only 14. At that time, French troops and Foreign Legion soldiers often gathered at the bustling Dut Daw market to monitor the population and show off their power. Little Sau, with her long black hair and sharp features, quietly observed them for days. One morning, as the market grew crowded and the soldiers stood chatting in groups, Sau swiftly pulled a grenade hidden in her basket of vegetables and hurled it at the cluster of soldiers before fleeing. The explosion killed 3 on the spot and seriously injured several others. Chaos broke out. Civilians screamed and scattered. And in the midst of the panic, the young girl vanished like the wind. That was not merely the rebellious act of a teenage girl. It was a bold, well-planned mission, executed with deliberate risk and deep hatred for the invaders. From that moment, the name Thi Sau began to spread among the local guerrillas and the broader resistance command. She was no longer just Little Sau the Messenger. She was now known by a different title, the fiercest young guerrilla of Dut Daw. Following her first mission, Thi Sau continued to be an active member of the revolutionary movement. Despite her young age, she was entrusted with more important assignments, including the mission to eliminate Trun Vun Ra, a notorious collaborator who had caused the deaths of many revolutionaries and innocent civilians. In 1950, at just 16 years old, Thi Sau personally carried out the plan to assassinate Trun Vun Ra, again using a grenade hidden in her familiar market basket. However, this time, the mission didn't go as planned. As she was retreating after the attack, Sau was discovered and captured on the spot by enemy forces. From that moment, the heroic life of Thi Sau took a different turn. But even in captivity, her face showed no trace of fear. She held her head high, stayed silent, and never gave up a single word in confession. And so, from a young girl secretly delivering letters through the forest, Sau entered a more tragic and heroic chapter, becoming a prisoner surrounded by enemies, facing interrogation, torture, and ultimately a death sentence. But before all of that, people would forever remember the image of Thi Sau, a tiny girl, grenade in hand, standing in the heart of Dut Daw Market, hurling it straight at the enemy, as if throwing her entire youth into the brutal fight for national independence. Arrest, torture, and death sentence. After the grenade attack on the traitor Trun Vun Ra in 1950, Thi Sau was unfortunately captured by the enemy while trying to retreat. Although the grenade did not eliminate its main target, the colonial forces were completely stunned by the audacity of such a small girl. When they discovered the identity of the attacker, a 16-year-old girl, they were not only shocked, but also filled with rage and unease. Thi Sau was immediately sent to the infamous Cam Luan prison in Saigon, known for detaining and torturing revolutionaries. There, she faced brutal and inhumane interrogations, beatings, sleepless nights, threats mingled with temptations, all with one aim, to force her to reveal contact points, organizations, and fellow comrades. But her tormentors failed. Thi Sau, a slender girl with bright eyes and a youthful face, possessed a will of steel stronger than anyone imagined. Despite being beaten to bruises and broken bones, despite the exhaustion from hunger and pain, she never uttered a single word. Each time she was interrogated, she calmly replied, "I did it out of patriotism. I have nothing to confess." On one occasion, after being tortured all night, a French officer growled, "You're just a child. How can you be this stubborn? Who do you think you are?" Sau looked him straight in the eye, a cold smile flickering on her dry lips. I am Vietnamese. Her unwavering defiance earned even her enemies' reluctant respect. Not yet 17 years old, she carried the unyielding spirit of a battle-hardened soldier. She endured not only physical torment, but also overcame the psychological tactics meant to break a prisoner's will. Eventually, when no information could be extracted, the French military court sentenced Thi Sau to death. Despite the fact that she was underage by international law, the sentence was not only cruel, but irrational and inhumane, exposing the cowardice of the enemy in the face of unshakable patriotism. After the sentence was handed down, Thi Sau was held at Cam Loan for a long time, awaiting execution. During that period, she did not cry, beg, or falter. Instead, she lived as a free spirit. She sang revolutionary songs, chatted with, and encouraged fellow prisoners. Many older female inmates later recalled that her cheerful demeanor, optimism, and courage gave them the strength to survive the hellish prison days. It was said that whenever guards passed by, Sau would often declare, "You may imprison my body, but you cannot imprison my ideals." And in the darkness of Cam Loan, a place that had witnessed so much sorrow, pain, and separation, a young Vietnamese girl became a source of light. A small flame, yet one that made the colonizers tremble, earned the admiration of fellow inmates and ensured that future generations would always remember her name. As the execution day neared, the French decided to transfer her to Con Dao, a place reserved for special death sentences, in an attempt to hide their barbarity from the eyes of international public opinion. But that very decision turned Thi Sau's death into an eternal symbol, for the land where she fell would become sacred. The Hang Duong Cemetery, resting place of countless national heroes. The day of execution, a dignified and immortal death. On the morning of January 23, 1952, a windy dawn, Con Dao was wrapped in a heavy silence. No birds sang, no waves lapped the shore as they usually did. The sky was gloomy, and a cold mist hung over the roads blanketed with fallen red almond leaves, like a mourning veil. In the prison courtyard, where gray stone walls echoed the chill of death, French Foreign Legion soldiers stood in two lines along the path leading to the execution ground. The rhythmic thud of military boots echoed cold and dry across the damp morning ground. All were waiting for the appearance of one person, the most extraordinary prisoner in the island's history, Thi Sau. As the door opened, a slender girl stepped out in a faded prison uniform. Her gaze was steady, unblinking. Her back was straight, her stride firm and determined. Long hair flowed down her back, and her pale skin stood out in the dim gray light. There was no trace of fear, no sobs, no pleas. This was not a criminal. This was a soldier, a daughter of the nation walking to the execution ground as if ascending a stage of honor. Witnesses recalled that Sau's face radiated with a strange brightness. She even began to sing a revolutionary song right in the middle of the prison yard. Her voice was not loud, not long, but it echoed deeply in people's hearts. Even the French soldiers, clutching their guns, lowered their heads, unable to meet her gaze. As she approached the execution post, a soldier stepped forward, holding a black blindfold. Sau calmly stepped back, her eyes resolute, her voice clear. "I am not guilty. I do not need to be blindfolded. Let me see my homeland one last time." That simple yet heroic statement made the entire field fall silent. A girl of just 17, in the face of death, chose to look it in the eye, with unwavering eyes and an unshaken smile. She held her head high and took a deep breath, as if inhaling the sacred spirit of her homeland, as if imprinting the image of her country into her heart before departing forever. The command was given. Gunshots rang out. The girl collapsed. All of Con Dao trembled. But her death was not the end. In that very moment, a legend was born. Thi Sau, the 17-year-old girl, became immortal in the heart of the nation. She fell, but her ideals lived on. Her spirit lived on. And the name Thi Sau ceased to be just a name. It became a symbol for an entire generation of youth who dared to live, dared to die for the independence and freedom of their country. Her body was buried at Hang Duong Cemetery, among fellow comrades who had fallen for the homeland. The simple grave that once marked her resting place has now become a sacred site of pilgrimage, where millions of people from all corners of the country quietly come to offer incense, place flowers, light candles, and softly call her name, Sister Sau. That smile still lives on in memory. That fearless gaze still imprints itself deep in the heart of the motherland, as if it never faded. For in the very moment she fell, Thi Sau lived forever, with her country, in the hearts of her people, and in history as the most radiant, pure, and unyielding young woman of her era. Legacy and the immortal symbol of Thi Sau in the heart of the nation. The death of Thi Sau was not an ending, but a blazing exclamation mark that concluded an extraordinary youth. A youth filled with patriotism, a life lived for the nation, and a courageous choice between a cowardly life and a glorious death. From the moment she fell at the execution ground in Con Dao, the name Thi Sau was no longer just the name of an individual, but became an indomitable symbol of Vietnamese youth, a sacred flame that continues to inspire generation after generation. A timeless symbol. There was no speech, no certificate of honor bestowed at the moment Thi Sau sacrificed her life. But the entire nation fell silent. And from that silence, from those tears, the country erected the image of a 17-year-old heroine, without a crown, yet forever the most noble daughter of her era. Her name has been given to schools from kindergartens to high schools, stretching from north to south. Streets, from small alleys in her hometown, Dut Daw, to bustling boulevards in Saigon. Statues, memorials, songs, poems, and folk stories, all attached to the image of a small girl with a fearless heart far greater than any bias of age or gender. Hang Duong Cemetery, a sacred eternal place. The grave of Thi Sau at Hang Duong Cemetery in Con Dao is not just the resting place of a national martyr. It has become a sacred destination in the hearts of millions of Vietnamese. Each night, hundreds of flickering candles, fresh flowers, and silent prayers are offered. No one is told to come. No one is asked. Yet Vietnamese people quietly find their way to Sister Sau, as if seeking spiritual refuge on their journey to live a righteous life. Many believe that Thi Sau's soul never left Con Dao, the place where she lived, fought, and fell. They believe she still watches over her homeland and continues to send out messages of courage, sacrifice, and patriotic love. In the national consciousness, Thi Sau is immortal. The story of Thi Sau is not only recorded in history books, but lives in lullabies sung by mothers, in the first lessons taught in schools, in songs on stages, and in the grateful gaze of those standing before her tombstone. The girl from Dut Daw left us when still in her youth, faithfully keeping her vow under the skies of Con Dao. The song The Girl from Dut Daw is a tender elegy, sung through generations in tears, yet also in pride. Pride that Vietnam once had of Thi Sau. Pride that 17 years old could become eternal. Today, in a world of constant change, the story of Thi Sau continues to be told, not out of sorrow, but as a reminder. Youth is not just to be lived for oneself. Youth can become legendary if it is lived for the nation. And if someone asks, why does the entire nation continue to call the name Thi Sau? Then the simplest answer would be, because she lived like a flame, and true flames never die.